What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Oil and Gas Startups Podcast. Got a very interesting show today, if I remember correctly, based on my call that I had with you guys a long time ago. I've got Howard and Trey with RedShift Energy here. How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Doing great.
Howard, straight off the plane from New Jersey. Trey drove in from Corpus. Sherry drove in from Corpus, and we got the Corpus crowd in here.
Yeah,
Y'all tired?
No, not really. We're
hungry. We didn't get a chance to eat.
Hungry.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to eat.
So gonna get some food right after this podcast.
Not airport food. Not airport food.
So why don't y'all tell me real quick, high level, what is RedShift Energy? What do y'all do? And then we can dive into it.
Sure. So we are a company that develops and commercializes applications of plasma energy and chemistry to solve some complex problems in oil and gas. And the main complex problem that we're solving is dissociation of hydrogen sulfide into hydrogen and sulfur. So it's a carbon-free process as long as we're paired with renewable energy to power our systems. But essentially, we can produce this hydrogen from this oil fuel poison for less than $1 a kilogram.
Yeah. So let me boil this down for, let's say, layman's terms, just to make sure that I have a correct understanding.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are using you're using plasma to take hydrogen sulfide, H2S, and dissociate it and remove the hydrogen.
Yes.
Strip out the hydrogen.
Exactly.
That's what you're doing. Okay. So
for those of you who don't know, plasma is the fourth state of matter, right? So
that's yes.
Yeah.
Walk me through
so
the nerd
walk
stuff.
you
Let's
walk
go
you
through
walk
the,
you through
the science. Explain this to me like I'm
walk through the easy stuff, and we'll get to the more complex stuff. So there's solid, liquid, and gas, and then there's plasma. Plasma is that highest state of energy matter. So with solid, you kind of know what you get. Everybody experiences solids. It's stuff you find on Earth pretty frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Liquids, same thing, and we live sort of in a gas environment. But plasmas are generally not found naturally occurring. You see lightning, that's a form of plasma. But plasmas are extremely high energy matter, okay? And most of the visible universe, 97% of the visible universe, is plasma, okay? And by the way, that's sort of how our name comes, because as you look at the universe, the plasma that you see is moving out and expanding.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's called the redshift.
Mm-hmm.
And RedShift Energy was we're expanding the applications of plasma energy and chemistry here on this planet.
That's super cool.
So we didn't come up with that name. We
borrowed it.
We borrowed it. We
Yeah.
borrowed it. We were looking at some names for the company, and there's all. When you go through naming a company, there's functional names and there's aspirational names, but we wanted to have something that was more directly related to the kinds of things that we're doing and the research that we're doing. And this had been proposed to us for another project that we were working on, and it didn't quite make the cut for what it was going to be used for. And but we always liked the name. We thought, boy, this would be a great name for a company if it were more outside of the original intent. So that's kind of the reason why we picked this name.
That's awesome.
That's actually
definitely. It seemed for us. It seemed like it was the name was built for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like with us in mind, with this project in mind, and so we ran with it.
Yeah, we just ran with it.
So tell me.
So to continue on with plasma, because I want to make sure that we don't lose the thread here.
Let's set the foundation.
Yeah.
Here.
So plasma state matter is where the electrons are dissociated or unbound from the nucleus. Okay, so they sort of float in a cloud around all the matter, and because that is the case, you get electrical conductivity within that plasma matter. So you could do some really cool things with the matter when it's in that state. You can make it combine in ways that it wouldn't otherwise combine, or you can separate it in ways, or you can make it rotate. You could do a whole bunch of really cool things with it in that state because it's such a high energy platform. So you've seen plasma, and a lot of it's blunt force trap plasma, like plasma TVs, where you simply put enough energy in it and it emits a light.
Yeah.
Or you have a plasma torch that can cut some metal. That's sort of blunt force. But we're doing things that are more sophisticated and more precise, especially if you're talking about dissociating hydrogen sulfide or carbon dioxide or any other kind of chemical that you want a specific outcome, that you want to use it for a specific purpose. And that's where some of those really cool techniques that has primarily been part of laboratory research around the world is now starting to make it out into real world applications. And we're one of those real world applications.
All right. This is super cool to me because it's so far outside of my understanding of science. Like, I don't get to mess around with plasma, except for plasma torches. Got to mess around with those. But so one, let's talk about, I want to know more about y'all and y'all's backgrounds, because you have a really interesting company here. Howard, why don't you tell me about your background and how you learned about plasma in the first place? And then Trey, I want to hear how you got wrapped up into this as well.
Oh boy, my uninteresting life, right? So, well, I'm from New Orleans.
Okay.
So, and I've actually worked offshore.
He redeemed himself. I thought he was from New Jersey, but he's from New Orleans.
He went to New Jersey in college and never went home.
I went to a college in New Jersey, and then I went to Tulane Business School. I actually worked offshore for 3 summers.
Awesome. I just don't know if you can be from South Louisiana and not work offshore. It seems like a rite of passage.
It's one of the things that you have to do. If you don't become a real man unless you worked offshore in some capacity. So yeah, I spent 3 summers, actually a 4th summer, working in the maintenance and repair shop, which was kind of really cool. Where I got to actually use a plasma torch. That's the first time. I didn't know it was a plasma torch, but I was a terrible welder, absolutely terrible welder. That's why they stuck me back on the barge.
I can see that.
Yeah, that was terrible.
I've never heard this story, but I can see he was a horrible welder.
I was terrible.
You should see him ride a tractor.
Yeah, you should see. Yeah, no, this land and me don't get along. So after I graduated from business school, I went to work for what is now Honeywell. It was called Allied Signal at the time, and I worked in their engineered materials division. And while I was there, I basically either helped turn around or develop novel technologies. So either turn around businesses that weren't performing, or I was developing technologies that were coming out of the research lab and helping them find traction within their niches. So I worked on really cool things like met glass, which is amorphous metals, which is kind of fun, using electrical conductivity fields like transformers on telephone poles, and novel plastics. I formed joint ventures with Japanese companies to do some of these things. It was really kind of fun stuff, but I got to understand the hardcore nature of manufacturing and the kind of hard hat aspect of American resources. I had one of my companies was out in Wyoming, and it was a mining.
Yeah,
it was really cool. One day I got this request. I need a new tire. Okay, I need a new tire. Well, what's this tire for? Well, it goes onto one of our trucks that moves some of the soda ash. Okay, why do I need to approve this? Well, it's $200,000. This is in 1985 dollars. Yeah. So this is some real money. I'm like, okay, I understand now why I need to approve this. So I got to learn about what it takes to run a CapEx business and be in that. And from there, I went to work for Pfizer, doing the same things as Pfizer at the time was a conglomerate, working to help them turn around their non-core businesses and getting them to sale, and then helping them transition some of their new products that were coming on stream, commercializing them and launching them. I went to Bristol Myers, did the same thing. and Trey and I have an overlapped history in the sense that
and didn't know each other,
but two of the drugs that I helped commercialize wound up being two of the drugs that he sold.
No, actually.
Oh, you did? Oh, no.
I didn't sell them.
You didn't sell them.
But the company
the company you worked for
did.
Yeah, the company you worked for did.
What company did you work for?
Sanofi Aventis. It was actually Sanofi Cinta LeBeau when I started there.
All right. My dad was a pharmaceutical rep growing up for AstraZeneca.
Okay, easy.
Yeah, so he was probably just Astra at the time.
Yeah. So I grew up around that industry.
The original guys were 8. I knew one of the guys in Corpus that worked at Astra, and he told me there were 8 reps for Astra, and they covered the entire United States.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know where my dad was at in that process. I'll have to go back and ask him.
Is he still alive?
Yeah.
Probably a low number.
Yeah, there may be.
He probably knows my buddy Harry, but he's passed. So
yeah,
small world.
Very small world.
Yeah. So after doing the corporate, Fortune 50 thing for a while, there was this sort of pull in the late 90s to get into entrepreneurship, and I left big pharma and big companies to start developing these small entities on my own. And I was either the first executive in or a founder or a co-founder of, I guess it's now 11 different companies.
Oh, wow.
So I came to meet Trey when I was asked. I was consulting to an investment banking firm who was doing some evaluation of novel technologies. And I was invited to a conference that Trey was at, which was down in Philadelphia, looking at plasma enterprises or plasma research. And it was really, really, really cool. I mean, some of the things that they were doing, I'm like, wow, I have not seen this before. They were doing things with like jet engines, and they were doing things with nanomolecules and getting it was fascinating stuff. They had like 20 different programs, and every one of them was, just as cool as the next. And at that moment, I decided, this is kind of where I want to be, because this is the frontier of scientific research, plasma energy and chemistry. This is awesome stuff. And so when I got back home, I started, talking to some of the people, and I called Trey and said, what this is really fascinating stuff. What do you think we should look at first? And that's when we came to decide upon a medical device that's currently about to go into phase 3. We've moved on from that company. I'm still on the board of it, but we've moved on from it. But it's currently in phase 3. But we founded that company. We got it through its rounds of funding, and it's now on a trajectory on its own. So, but it was thrilling to be able to get one of these programs off the ground like that and get it going. So 5 years ago, we formed an incubator to do more of the same. Instead of looking at one project at a time, have a suite of them and have them all go simultaneously. Yeah. And that's
RedShift was the first out of that batch.
RedShift is the first graduate out of that batch.
Got you. So how did you have this incubator type model to where you could run several different projects or ideas simultaneously. How did the idea of RedShift come to be? I mean, how did y'all identify that, hey, there's sour gas in these oil and gas applications?
Well, hold on. Let Trey tell him about himself, because you're really jumping in, because this is where the brain trust here.
So I'll let you, but you'll be able to tell who went to Princeton and who went to Southwest Texas or now Texas State, because I'll make mine very short. So I started out as an accountant that got into pharmaceutical sales, thinking I will build my way up into the accounting department from the sales department. And I realized that in order to do that, you were going to have to move to New Jersey. And I was like, you're not taking this Texas guy to New Jersey. No way. It's not going to happen. So I worked in pharma about 20 years. It just so happened that like a lot of that Howard did, I was at Warner Lambert, which was a division of Pfizer now. and he worked at Pfizer. Sanofi Synthel Labo became now Sanofi Aventis, and Howard was the business development VP that brought a few of Sanofi's prize products over. A lot of the guys I worked with at Sanofi launched those products in the late 90s with Sanofi. And so I went from accountant to drug rep to these kinds of technologies falling in my lap and deciding that I think, this is the wave of the future. And these are things I really want to do. I'm not really a sales guy.
Yeah.
It just so happened that everybody else thought I was a sales guy, but I'm still an accountant with a business mind in the background. So I really wanted to do something that was life-changing. And that's where these are. And so I helped develop the program there at Drexel to start that initial, I guess, for lack of a better word, seminar or convention. It was real small. We only invited a few people, most of which were venture capitalists, to get an idea of what to go with first. And so, like you said, we started with the medical device, and we did that for. Well, I'm thinking that was 2010.
2010 is when we started the medical device,
and then so. We got that to a point where it has its own management team now that's running it, and we moved over to start an incubator, and then into RedShift. And then so how did RedShift come out of this? Because it was
we were thinking at the time when we were looking at some of these programs that there was an opportunity to take some of these plasma technologies and go from gas to liquid. All right, and significantly lower the cost of doing business by using plasma energy and plasma chemistries.
Yep. So with all things in life, it was by accident.
Yeah,
because we really started out as a gas to liquid, coal to gas play, and part of that part of the process. There's like 6 different pieces of that process to get to GTL. H2S is one of them, and being from Texas, knowing a lot of people in oil and gas, every time we spoke to them would say, H2S is a major issue in oil and gas, major, all the way up the entire stream, from upstream, downstream. It's a big deal. And when we started talking to the guys in the field that, either in, roughnecks to engineers, everybody kept saying, if you could really do something with hydrogen sulfide, and we realized that GTL really isn't as a big concern. Doing that entire piece isn't a big concern as much as doing something with H2S and help solving a big issue. And
we kind of realized that we needed to solve that hydrogen sulfide problem anyway, in order to get the GTL program start to finish. Because if you don't figure that out, it's going to be really hard to deal with the sulfur that comes out of your system. And we had some researchers that we knew that had a great deal of experience with hydrogen sulfide. And we're chatting with them, and they're like, yeah, we can do this. And
it became the core
core of what the company is. So we convinced the lead scientist to join us. He was out of Chevron. He was out of Chevron, and he spent 10 years there working on a lot of different interesting things for them. And he joined us in
2018 or 19,
early 2018,
yeah.
Early 2018, and we've spent the better part of the last 4.5 years pursuing this solution for hydrogen sulfide.
Explain this to me of how it actually works. Like, what are, like, one, from a basic visual, like, imagine I haven't seen the process, the equipment. I don't know what it looks like. Explain to me what it looks like, how it works. Kind of paint a picture for me here.
Sure. So simply, you take a stream of hydrogen sulfide gas, you pass it into our chamber, which has dynamics of flow to it that are very important. And we inject through electrodes a very high voltage, low current through that chamber at very specific points within the chamber in order to make the hydrogen sulfide dissociate, but not reassociate. So it's got to be a one-way reaction. And essentially,
you run this voltage and then it disassociates.
It disassociates.
Okay.
But because of the way the gas is moving through the chamber, it's going to be a one-way reaction, because most of the time you put that much energy in, it'll cause it to reform. Okay. And you don't want that to happen. You just don't want to waste energy like that. So you have to. There's structural dynamics along with the electronics and electrical current that have to all dovetail in together in order to make it be a one-way reaction. Now, the interesting thing about this is that you can the more energy you put in, the more efficient your system is going to be. Okay, but then the more energy you put in, each additional level of efficiency is like a logarithmic scale. You have to put an enormous amount of energy to get 100% conversion. So we don't try for that. What we try to do is make sure that it is the lowest cost.
Yeah.
So we don't try
There's
to
going
do
to be
it.
a point of diminishing return.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we recycle it. So we get about half of it.
If you have to recycle anything, you might as well recycle enough.
Yeah.
At a certain energy level, so that it maximizes the use of the entire unit.
Yeah.
So, and in this way, we can keep the cost of dissociation down by putting just enough energy in to make it have a reasonable amount of efficiency, and at the lowest overall cost per kilogram. Okay, and we're able to do that because we precisely control the environment in which the electrodes operate. The gas flows are precise. The electrodes, the current is precise, and we're able to get that performance.
Current version's about the size of a refrigerator.
Actually, no. The business end is about the size of my cell phone.
Yeah.
The entire unit with what are those things? The
valves and the pipes that go through, and
some of it looks nuclear. Even the chamber, the heat chamber, the heat exchangers.
Oh, the heat exchangers.
It all looks like something out of like James Bond.
But basically, the business end of our unit is about the size of my cell phone.
Okay.
And the temperature inside the chamber is around 1500. I guess that's 1500 K, but we'll converting it, it's like 1250 C.
Okay.
Okay.
About 3,000 degrees.
Yeah.
So it's pretty hot.
Yeah.
But
don't do the math on that.
No, don't do the math.
No one pull out the calculator and do conversion.
No, there's probably somebody out there like, he said that wrong.
It's all right.
I'm an accountant guy.
Yeah, our lead scientist is probably going to
plus or minus.
allow for some error.
You were off by 10%.
And they're very precise.
Is your primary driver from a economic perspective on? I imagine the price of your electricity is going to impact economics as well.
Absolutely. Your acquisition cost of electricity is going to determine just how cheap your hydrogen produced from this is going to be. I mean, if you're a typical refinery here in Texas, you're buying wholesale electricity off,
3 to 4 cents.
3 to 4 cents a kilowatt. If you get to 7 cents, if that's what your wholesale acquisition cost is, then you're still under $1 a kilogram for hydrogen.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about what our targets are, worldwide, and actually our DOE's target
I don't know
producing.
Anything, so dive into that.
The hydrogen shot. The hydrogen shot is $1 a kilogram for hydrogen.
Okay.
And we should be able to hit that mark pretty easily.
Cool. Yeah, so what you guys are looking for a good application is you need a place that has sour gas. So, you can find this in many oil and gas basins, but it's also good for you guys is that if you overlay, hey, where can we get cheap electricity? It also overlays on oil and gas basins pretty well. So a lot of people have access to cheap electricity. So you can find those two things. Let's talk about the scale of it, because you guys explain the size of the physical equipment to me. Now, how little H2S does it make sense to run this on, and how can it scale up infinitely to any volume? Walk me
Yeah.
through how the technology works.
So these are going to be designed to be modular.
Okay.
Okay. And there will be 3 or 4. We're still working out exactly what our stair-step function on terms of capacity are going to be. But our minimum viable product is about 10 kilowatts. So that equates to around 2 tons a day of sulfur production. So that's sort of the minimum amount of throughput that you'd want to have here. But that requires some gas separation at the front end and a little bit and some repiping to do some recycling on the back end. It makes sense at that small scale if you're unlocking a trapped asset. So if you've got a well or a well pad that's producing a lot of sour gas and you still have a lot of reserve that you'd like to be able to get access to, but that sour gas is preventing you from operating either safely or at all, then this can help you unlock that trapped asset. So it makes sense to be able to access that.
Yeah.
We're not looking for it to replace like the ultrafabs or the low cap machines.
No.
We're going to take at that level, at the wellhead level, the well pad level, there's a lot of shut in or shuttered in that that will fit into 5%, 6%.
Yeah, you can have wells that are 5-6% that just make it,
and you can't do anything with
too
that.
Expensive to deal with the gas.
You can't treat it. Yeah,
you can't treat it. The ultrafabs are great, but they at that high level, especially if you have a high throughput gas stream coming out of these wells, you just can't make money on it. So they wind up, like Trey said, hibernating them until a new technology comes along, and this is where it would be valuable upstream. Downstream, if you're at a refinery, which is actually our beachhead market, you've got all the gas separation equipment already installed. It's a legacy system for us. We would be replacing what was known as the Klaus technology within that system, and we would take the separated gas. We would separate the hydrogen from the sulfur, and the sulfur is what the refineries produce anyway, so that's not going to change. But the refinery will be able to recover the hydrogen that we produce and feed it back into the front end. The refineries use 25% of all the hydrogen that's produced in this country to remove sulfur and among other things.
Well, that's a good point that you just brought up, that refineries are kind of your beachhead for entry into the market, because I'm thinking, if you're an upstream operator and you have sour gas at the wellhead, I'm thinking, okay, you dissociate it. Now you have hydrogen, but what are you doing with the hydrogen at that point? But the refineries, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they're already using it.
Yeah, they're already using it. Yeah.
Or creating their own from methane or
I mean, and the benefit to the refinery is not only are they recovering the hydrogen, but if they're sourcing it from steam methane reformation, we're saving them 8.9 tons for every ton that we produce out of our system.
Yeah.
So they can reduce their carbon footprint in either scope 1 if they're producing the on site, or if they're buying it off the pipeline, there's the scope 2 emissions. Then the 8.9 tons. So if you're a typical plant that's 250 tons a day of sulfur, you could be saving yourself, what is that, about 150 tons. 150 tons.
Charity said we're not busting out the calculator.
We're not busting out the calculator.
I was an accountant, but that math is just add and subtract.
150 tons a day of carbon dioxide that you're saving of putting out, and over a course of a year. Yeah. It adds up to real significant impact on your carbon footprint. And that's among other drivers, obviously profitability. Everybody wants that. You want to lower your capex. That's a good thing for us, because our capex is pretty low relatively. But also improving your carbon footprint and your performance.
It's funny, when we started this, we would talk about lowering your carbon footprint. the green side of this, because you're actually turning a waste product into
Mm-hmm.
a product you could use.
Yeah.
So,
the feedstock,
I mean,
yeah.
and it's kind of the best of all worlds. It's the typical conservative green in that it's green that makes you money. So it's green in that it saves the planet, and it's green in that you can make more money
Yeah, I
off of
mean,
it this way.
I'm,
But we weren't getting any play from it
I'm-
at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't want.
I'm-
They were making money.
I'm a true capitalist, so I think that the best solutions for sustainability and climate are the ones that are superior technology and
Mhm.
economics. And so, at the end of the day, I don't care what anyone says, economics drive everything, right? And
Sure.
Absolutely.
So, when you can find a solution that has, it's at the intersection of both of those
Yep.
things, it's
And there are many out there.
yeah, there's
Mhm.
not a ton out there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the reason why we call it golden hydrogen, because you're, one man's garbage is another man's gold,
Yeah.
and this produces what the industry wants, which is carbon-free hydrogen at less than $1 a kilogram. I mean, it hits everything.
Yeah. Let's talk about running the business, because I'm always intrigued by capital intensive businesses and startups, because it adds a completely different element than the startup world, where you can spin up code and get products
Mhm.
launched fairly cheaply. So y'all are about 4 years into this,
About 4 years in, yeah.
approximately? Okay. Let's talk about the R&D phase, and how long did that process take, and did you guys bootstrap that process? Did y'all raise capital to develop the technology? Walk me through that a little bit.
We did both.
I would say all the above.
Yeah, we
All
did
the
both.
above.
We pitched in our own money.
Yeah.
We got friends and family. We got some sophisticated investors who believed in what the technology could do. They believed in us as a management team, which
And then
was
some of the technology was already fairly developed. It just didn't have the right push behind it. It was being developed. Now we developed it further
Yeah.
in the last 4.5, 5 years. But I mean, it's kind of feeding off of 40 years of technology development here. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
can't take credit for all of it.
we can't.
Yeah.
We stand on the shoulders of a lot of really good researchers who have put enormous amount of time and energy into trying to solve
And
this
it's
problem.
really hard to estimate like how much money was actually spent if you looked at it as a whole. How much money was spent on developing this technology, and how much of it was put in by us and our group and the investors that came in 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 10 times probably what we've done already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how all technological innovations come about, right? I mean, it's hardly ever just one moment when something's discovered. It's usually a common or an
Mhm.
aggregator,
Yeah.
Yep.
cumulative effort of a
It-
bunch of smart people.
It's a lot of
working
smart
towards
people. I
something.
mean, for us, it's a couple of really smart guys who have seen where the challenges were from other attempts, and understand the way refineries work, because it's important to consider
Yeah.
what kind of application you're going to use in terms of creating the plasmas, and then how you're going to manage the system so that it integrates with that refinery,
Yeah.
or even up at the well. I mean,
Yeah.
so you can't just look at it in terms of we'd have lots of really good plasma chemists, because we do, but they also come with a long history of research in oil and gas.
Yeah.
Because
Which
you
is
can't
also
do
critical.
both.
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other and be successful.
Yeah. Which always, I mean, it's always tough, because it's like, where does your domain expertise come from?
Mhm.
Do you have these really smart chemists, or do they have oil and gas? It's hard to
Mhm,
find, people that understand both sides, because you can always make technology and say, oh, we think that this will have an application in oil and gas, but unless you really understand oil and gas applications thoroughly, like even me, like I
Yeah.
don't understand refineries. I know what refineries do, but
Mhm.
I can't speak intelligently and go deep on the operations of refineries. Now, you want to talk about drilling wells? I can drill a well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So being able to have that domain expertise to have context of what you're actually
Well, even
developing
within
and
the
building.
refinery, when you talk to somebody in a refinery, they know what they do in the
They
refinery.
know their position,
Yeah.
their function.
Well, what
yeah.
happens upstream? What
Yeah.
happens downstream?
Yeah.
Let me ask this guy. And they're like, okay, but I want to know what happens right after you finish.
Yeah.
So, and it's so even for guys like we came
Mhm.
sort of out of pharma. Howard worked a little bit in oil and gas, but
Yeah.
I really came out of pharma, accounting, and then pharma. So for me, the only oil and gas experience I had was from, just being in Texas.
Yeah.
And there's oil and gas everywhere, and Corpus is huge in oil
It's
and gas.
osmosis in Texas.
Yeah.
You just have to breathe it, and
Yeah.
you get informed.
But we've learned a lot over these last 4.5 years about, and I mean, you might want to say something a little bit on how we ended up at refining as our beachhead instead of starting, because our product is small right now, and it's like we said, it's modular, but you may want to get into a little bit of how we started that small piece to start at the large side.
So when you obviously when you're looking at where is this going to go, who do we sell it to? You have to figure out, given what you have, who's going to want it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were looking at the size and what it would take for us to get to a refinery scale solution, thinking, it's going to be 3, 4, 5 years. We need to sell smaller units, but those smaller units are only really applicable at the wellhead. Okay. And there's an obvious opportunity because at certain, as we discussed earlier, at certain wells, the hydrogen sulfide content gets so high that it's really tough to recover. So the argument would be, hey, we'll go upstream and we will start producing these small modules, bring it all in, either do fee for service or, if somebody wants to buy the whole thing, we'd sell them the whole kit and service it. But go to places where there would be high sulfur content wells and unlock those assets. And that would be the driver. Unfortunately, after we had gotten sort of what we thought would be enough momentum into the industry, right, upstream, the price went to negative $38 a barrel.
Yeah.
No
one cares about hearing about plasma.
And nobody cares about plasma when that happens.
And then the
pandemic. And we kept moving along. We kept continuing to push the boundaries of our technology, and it became pretty clear that we could, with a little help and a little bit more money, rapidly accelerate towards that refinery scale solutions. And that seemed to be also where the interest was starting to come, because legacy systems, the need to reduce carbon footprint, et cetera, et cetera.
The world changed.
The world did change.
Everybody wanted hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
The last G20 was hydrogen.
There was big
all this
macro.
Yeah, the macro movement started to direct us, and we realized that this, I guess, was about 1.5 years ago, that it was important for us to make that pivot towards the refinery scale solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And we started adjusting our technological development so that it would, when ready, slingshot towards that application. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we're abandoning upstream by any stretch.
No.
But
I mean, when you look for distribution of a product, it doesn't matter what product it is. You always look for your path of least resistance to wedge in, right?
Yeah.
And it is really interesting how 2020 changed so many things on a macro perspective, because now it was like a flip of a switch in terms of ESG and looking for, it was kind of crazy.
I don't even know that term existed prior to 2020, did it?
Yeah.
I mean,
you never really heard about it.
I've never heard about it. They called it green or climate. Now it's ESG everywhere.
Yeah, it was really crazy how that was such a catalyst for many different things. But, hydrogen, we're kind of talking about hydrogen, but, wasn't a ton of movement around it. And then now all of a sudden everyone's talking about hydrogen. And then hydrogen has a lot of questions around it too. Like, how do you produce it economically? And
how do you store it? How do you move it around?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions around it. But that's why.
Well, that's why at a refinery,
the refinery makes so much sense because
they're already utilizing it.
Yeah. I mean, when you told me that it's one of their inputs. It's such a heavy percentage of inputs. It's like, okay, well, you take this waste and then you start having circular economy there where you're taking waste, turning it into hydrogen, and that's pretty big efficiencies if
and also had a couple other things to it. Like, we need gas separation, which isn't really out in upstream right now. There aren't amine systems really out in the field anymore. So, and there are in areas. Don't let somebody tell me, oh, he's an idiot. He's wrong. He's wrong. We do use it, but I mean, it does, but it's not like it used to be. And so those separation systems are already there at a refinery. And the hydrogen coming out, the hydrogen sulfide coming out at a refinery is pure, more pure hydrogen sulfide. It doesn't have all the BTEX and the other stuff that may interfere with the separation process.
Yeah. I mean, our technology is kind of agnostic to any of those other components of a gas stream. So it'll work fine with BTEXs. It'll work fine with methane and ammonia. It'll work fine with water. It works fine with carbon dioxide. In fact, we've been modeling some customer streams, some potential customer streams that have as much as 47% carbon dioxide in them. And our system works just fine with that. We'd prefer, I think everybody would prefer, to have a more concentrated hydrogen sulfide stream because, you use less energy, et cetera. But a lot of times you don't get to pick the flow that you've got. Yeah. You have to deal with the problem you have. And the refineries have to deal with this problem. They have to deal with this gas. It's a very sour thing, and they don't have, or they didn't have a lot of options. They either throw it through the cloud system or they don't operate at all. So they have to deal with that. And with the technologies they have, this gives them another bullet in their chamber to be able to deal with problems that come along. So if they wind up having whatever type of gas stream that comes out of their separators, our technology should be in a good position to be able to handle pretty much anything that comes out.
Yeah. This is really fascinating stuff to me. I've seen some other H2S technologies. I think we've had them on the show, both that use different types of processes, whether it's chemical or mechanical. But the idea of using plasma to dissociate, like I feel like I'm getting a plasma 101 course here, and talking about dissociation of molecules. Super interesting to me. And there's other companies out there like Vita, which I don't know if you guys have ran across or not, but they're using DNA sequencing, and they have they talk about gold hydrogen and taking oil and gas and CO2 and being able to produce hydrogen from it. So there's a lot of interesting, and I mean, you look at DNA sequencing with CRISPR, I mean, that has come such a long ways. So it's interesting to see these two different technologies, DNA sequencing and plasma, and then finding use cases for them in oil and gas and hydrogen. It's pretty exciting times.
It is very exciting. It's, when there's an interest and a desire to solve problems, you get a lot of creative minds ready to go. Yeah. And it's pretty cool to see all the really interesting things that have come about, given that I think the industry is ready to solve these problems.
Yeah.
They've got an incentive to, and I think the economics are there for a lot of these technologies to be able to utilize them and achieve some of their goals. Yeah. I think, maybe 6-7 years ago, there weren't a lot of these options that were available. A lot of these technologies just weren't ready for prime time. And I think now that they are, the industry has options. They have places to go.
Timing's right.
Timing is good.
Yeah.
Time is everything.
Extremely optimistic and bullish on humans' ability to figure out creative solutions to our problems.
Aren't the aliens going to come save us?
Hey,
the aliens are going to save us.
Yeah, the
I had a big alien conversation at the office yesterday, actually. So don't get me started on that. But guys, if someone's listening to the show and they're interested in RedShift and what you guys are working on, how can they reach out? You have a website? Are y'all on LinkedIn? What's the best way to get a hold of y'all?
Yeah, but either you can contact us through the website or you can reach us at LinkedIn.
What's the website? What's the URL?
RSENRG.com.
All right. There you go. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. If you reach out to Howard, give him a hard time for moving up to New Jersey and not being back down in the South. If you reach out to Trey, give him kudos for never leaving Texas.
Cool.
So
not gonna happen.
So guys, I appreciate y'all coming on the show.
Oh, this has been great.
This is I like shows like this because I get to learn and discover new technologies that I have no experience with. So it's really cool to be able to hear about this, get a little bit of Plasma 101, and then really understanding the application that it can be used in across
We'll have to
the
come
sector.
back and talk to you when we get our pilot running.
Yeah.
I want to come see it. So I want to come see it.
It might be local.
There we go.
It might be very close.
There we go. Once you get it up and running, I want to come see it live in action. So appreciate you guys coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having us. This has been awesome. We really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Love your show.
Thank you.
Take care.
Hey, thank you guys.